Hey guys, President, and welcome to another video. Today it is the spoiler talk for Spider-Man Homecoming. I need a haircut, I'm sorry about that. There's no AC in my room right now. This room sucks with heat, and it's crazy hot outside. Can't run my window vent right now because I'm making this video, so excuse me if I'm a little like, it's hot. Okay, anyways, so spoiler talk, I guess we'll go from like beginning to end. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. I have just some talking points I couldn't bring up in the review. Like I said, this movie's great. The best Spider-Man movie I've seen. I did mention there's a ton of humor in it. I think there might be more than Guardians 2, which had plenty of it. But it worked. I wasn't annoyed with it to a point. Like, I think it had a good balance between action and comedy, which is nice. There's plenty of good jokes. None I can think of on the top of my head that were like, none were crazy memorable. There's just some nice, Spider-Man had some nice little one-liners when he's fighting people, etc. Jokes about him not being good at interviewing. There's this insta-kill mode. Not interviewing, interrogating, but there's this insta-kill mode on his suit that, like, he has that. Oh, I forget the name of it, but it's like Iron Man has, like, Jarvis, the spider suit designed by Iron Man, has something like that. And so she asked to activate insta-kill mode, like, multiple times. Always like, no. Because, like, the suit eyes turn red and stuff. It added some humor stuff. Obviously, me just explaining it, it's not funny, but in context of the movie, that was some of the funny stuff. The villain Vulture by Michael Keaton, he played did really good job. As one of the best parts of the movie was his character, as he wasn't just a straight up villain. He had his reasons, which would be Tony Stark made damage control, which obviously put him off the case. And so once he's off that assignment of cleaning up the rubble, which got him money. So he resorted to crime, stealing stuff from the war in 2012, the Alien Wars, Not like actually the 2012 movie, the first Avengers took place in 2012. And so all that rubble from the Jatari and stuff they were using to turn into weapons and sell, which is why Vulture worked with the Tinkerers in this movie, younger version, and he's making all the weapons. He's not really talked about too much, but he is involved. There's two versions of the Shocker. Never get like that full-on suit you'd see in the comics, but they're there. I feel like they're kind of more treated as goons. It wasn't like taking down him first, then deal with the other guys, just kind of there. And he did have a fight scene or two, but nothing like, dang, it's cool. It's the Shocker. The Vulture was the main villain and the best villain. So yeah, he was doing it out of like necessity almost. I'm sure there's other things, but he wasn't like just pure evil in his head the whole time. He was doing it with purpose. Like, even there's that scene where a guy wanted to leave, and he went to shoot him with, like, this anti-gravity gun, but he grabbed something that just totally disintegrated him. He's like, I didn't mean to do that, but he wasn't freaking out about that, which showed he was still preserved and didn't really care. So it's kind of conflicting. Like, he's a villain, but then you feel for him at the same time. But I'm sure Spider-Man felt the same way throughout the movie. The biggest part, that plot twist I was talking about, involved the villain, Adrian, as it turns out that he is the dad of Spider-Man's crush throughout the movie, Liz. And so, yeah, that was the scene I was talking about where like, my palms were sweating and stuff, which is obviously it's a stupid thing for some people, but if you get to a movie enough, like I tend to do, then it's an intense scene regardless, because he asked her to prom, and she says yes. So, like, a typical high school movie kind of story I was talking about earlier that's built into this. And when he goes to pick her up, he knocks on the door, and the Vulture opens. Adrian opens. Just so you don't get confused, Adrian Toomes is the name of the Vulture. That's the guy's actual name. So I'm either going to refer to him as the Vulture, Adrian, or Michael Keaton, just because, he's a big-name actor, and sometimes you tend to call characters the actor's name just because they're big enough. So, yeah, Adrian opens the door, and Peter's there, and he's just caught off guard. The music's nice for that scene too, and then he's in, and like you see this Adrian's character, Vulture's character, he's like playing this really good like father. He's like in like typical dad things, and like he plays that part well. Probably because he actually is. He is a good father. It's just the stuff outside the crime stuff, obviously. But so that was the whole time was intense. Is like he was still staring at him when they were trying to get the picture taken and stuff. The most intense part of that whole segment, and this was towards the third act, like this has all happened before that final battle thing with the plane and stuff you saw kind of in the trailers. They gave away a lot in the trailers. But anyways, they get in the car because he's the one driving them to prom, and he slowly starts asking questions, and like Liz isn't making it better either because she's clueless at the whole situation, and so she's bringing up stuff like Peter knows Spider-Man, they're actually good friends. It's like that catches his ear, and he's like, Peter wasn't with us on the elevator, but he came to DC, and like all that stuff, it came together when they were talking, and he realized that he is Spider-Man. And so they get there, and he's like, I need to have a talk with him, and she's like, yeah, go easy on him. It's typical, like, you get a dad talk thing, I guess. And so this scene kept going in intensity because like he pulled out the Glock, and he has it like right behind the front seat, and he's like, does she know? And I'm assuming if she did, maybe events would have been different, but she didn't. And so he talked to him. He's like, you're going to leave me alone. You're going to get off my back. Let me do my job. And you're going to show my daughter, like, have a good time with her at the party. So, like, it was a pretty reserved answer for a villain finding out someone's secret identity. Obviously, Peter being Peter, went in there at first, but then he saw, I don't know if he saw what was happening, but he knew that it obviously was bad, so he realized he had to call it off with Liz. He's like, I'm sorry, I gotta go. So he goes, and he's in the suit. That's not his, because obviously, sorry I didn't bring this up yet, I'm going off the biggest part, the biggest twist, but earlier in the movie you saw in trailers with that ferry, that split was his fault, because he's been kind of reckless, and he wasn't as, I guess he's not as trained, because he's a young kid, and so that whole thing it's an alien tech gun that he webbed down, but it started going out of control to shoot and everything, so it caused the split. And he did his best to stop it, but obviously Iron Man had to swoop in and save it. And so Iron Man, out of anger, said, give me the suit back. And so his cool suit. The suit, I'm going to pause that whole thing, go into the suit a little bit, because this suit is awesome. It has the most features out of any of the suits, because they had it where Tony made it, because even like in Spider-Man, Peter, in the original Spider-Man trilogy, Peter made the suit. He had the first suit in like the wrestling match, but then the actual cool suit, the actual Spider-Man suit, he just made it himself. But this time it was Iron Man's thing. So it was like 500 possible web combinations, such as shock webs. It's kind of like there's a version of Spider-Man like that, so it's more teched out Spider-Man, like shock webs, got an inner AI in it talking to him and helping him so she can tell her load up certain types of webs. And so there's a lot of them. It's also like the web grenade in a trailer. You've got normal webs. You got taser webs, like rapid fire webs that just shoots a little burst of web, which has been seen before. But he didn't really learn any of them because he had to hack in to take off the training wheels protocol, which was what Tony was using to limit him. So the story is heavily involved with like him trying to become more mature. Well, he wants to be, has more power. He wants to be like an Avenger type character, and so he does a lot to break those restrictions that Tony put on him, and you see it throughout the movie. But obviously at the end, you see that he realizes it's different, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this video is going to be a little long because it's spoilers, so I have a lot to say because I only know one person who's seen it, so like I can't really talk to anyone a lot about this movie. So I'll talk to you guys. Obviously, so that scene ends, and he goes to fight him. The finale is a really nice fight scene on the plane, which you saw parts of already with him steering it and stuff. But so what you didn't know, I don't think, was it was Iron Man's, Tony's plane. They're having a moving date, so he's like moving out of the tower, apparently, which I guess will contribute to the other movies later. But he had a lot of crap on that plane, and so there's kind of references and Easter eggs. A new shield for Captain America they're working on. I'm not sure if it's just like they stopped making it or they still made it, because obviously at this point in time, Cap and Iron Man still aren't on the best of terms. But regardless, they still had that. They had some belt for Thor, some mystical thing, I don't know about it. It's supposed to make him stronger or something. And then they had the Hulkbuster armor all on this plane. And then when Toomes comes in using alien tech, which they use a lot to break into stuff, you see like arc reactors and Iron Man mask, Chitauri guns, etc. And so this is like supposed to be his last job. Peter and them have the fight. He stops him, and Peter saves Adrian's life, saves the Vulture's life at the end. And so what we see in the first after credit scene, which I'll bring up now. Sorry, this does not have a good order. I'm really bad at staying on one topic. So in the first after credit scene, we see the man. I can't remember his name, but he is Scorpion. Like that's his real name. That's his alias. That's his villain name, is Scorpion. He's talking to Vulture. He's like, I heard that you know who Spider-Man's identity is. He's like, if I knew, he'd be dead already. So he's kind of, I guess you can interpret it in different ways. It's like he knows it, but he's keep protecting him from him as like his way to get back. Showing us like he has good qualities, or it's like, you know, making up for that, the fact that he saved his daughter and him before, which was saving his daughter was the DC scene where he really came onto his own. The DC scene was really cool. It had the upside down kiss Easter egg, which it never happened, but it's like joking about that, like in the first movie, you know. And I'm sorry, the scenes are so cool. The fight scenes are awesome. All the characters are good. Like I said already, the acting's great. So that whole fight scene happens and he doesn't rat him out at the end. So it's either that, like he had the change of heart, or it's like he's keeping it for himself because he wants to go after him. Either way, both of those two characters, Scorpion and Vulture, are members of the Sinister Six. So kind of curious to see where that goes. Then the second after credit scene was just a joke thing where Captain America came out, talked about patience and like waiting so long for nothing. As they use his, like you saw in the trailer, he had like that PSA kind of typical like thing they'd play at like in gym class or something. It was like talking about you being determined and getting stuff done. So he did that. He had some of those in the movie, and so that was just him again. So that was all the Captain you saw in the movie. Iron Man is in this movie, not a ton. I know some people were to be like Iron Man 4. It's not. It's just he has enough role. Yeah, his role makes sense. It's not too little, too much. It's the perfect amount. And he kind of plays like this fatherly figure, though not willingly all the time, for Peter throughout this movie with like taking the suit away, offering him. One of the bigger parts is obviously, it changes later, but he offers him an Avengers job at the end, and you see another like Easter egg thing, as in it's a press conference, which happened in Civil War, and in Civil War he came out and gave his identity away, which led to like Aunt May's death and stuff. So that was messed up. Don't ever do that. Yeah, because you guys are superheroes. Anyways, there's a reference to that, and then he offered him a brand new suit, which is reminiscent of the Iron Spider. Obviously, it wasn't like red and gold and had like the metal stuff of Iron Man, or like the claws, the legs coming out the back or whatever. But it was just it was a kind of a based off that. And so he's going to just let him join the Avengers. But Peter, after his whole experiences, realized he's not really ready for that, and he doesn't really want that. He wants to stay at home, be with his friends, and fight on that level. And so he declined. And there's another character showed up, Pepper showed up. So she's back. I know, like in Civil War, they were kind of break, so they don't really explain what changed between them in that time. But she comes out, and they seem happy together. And there was an actual press conference waiting, which was a cool part. So currently, at the end of this, he's not an Avenger, but obviously he's going to work with them and the Guardians and everyone else in Infinity War, which is the next movie he'll be in, which comes before the Spider-Man Homecoming 2. I don't know if it'll be called Homecoming 2 or if it'll be Spider-Man something else, because Homecoming's like the subheading. That part was cool. Happy Hogan's in this movie too, which is the bodyguard / kind of just works under. Works under Tony. He was actually the director of the first 2 Iron Man movies. But what else is there to say? Oh, I guess I'll go in depth with some of the other characters. Peter's best friend in this is Ned, which turns out I didn't know this because I didn't know a decent amount of Spider-Man. I didn't know this much. The Ned character eventually becomes like the Hobgoblin in the comics, so they could do something like that. Only problem is like I'm not superhero shape, and this guy's definitely not in like superhero or supervillain shape either. Just as a fact, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like he's not someone you'd look at like, yeah, he'd play a superhero or villain. So I don't think that's the route they're going to go, because it's kind of cliche, and it's been done multiple times in all the Spider-Man movies. And Amazing Spider-Man is, Harry became Goblin, same thing in Spider-Man 3. So same with the father thing, although this time it was kind of fresh because it didn't really happen in Amazing Spider-Man 2, because Harry's dad was only a reference, but obviously in the first Spider-Man, his best friend's dad was a villain. In this case, it's his crush's dad is the villain. But it was cool. I mean, it was a really fresh thing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It felt kind of different, and it was just it was a great movie, man. I love that movie. So, I'm trying to think if there's any other things I could talk about that I want to talk about spoiler-wise. I already mentioned all the fight scenes were cool. Oh, Donald Glover's character, in case any of you wanted to know. I'm sure if you've seen the movie, you know, but if some people watch the spoilers and don't know, he is actually Miles Morales' uncle. And so, some people don't know who Miles Morales is, and he is the Spider-Man in the alternate Spider-Man verse. After Peter Parker dies, he takes over And he's a really cool character, and those Donald Glover's voiced him in some animated shows, and he also, back then, there was a campaign pushing for him to become the Miles Morales in the movie or something. Apparently he's going to get an animated movie by Sony. Well, it's in the plans, so I don't know if they'll be able to use him in this MCU, but Donald Glover does play his uncle, and he references saying he's got like a nephew in the city, and he gives some information that Spider-Man helping him get the weapons off the streets. The alien tech, obviously, yeah. So that was cool. His character did a good job for what it was. Small role, but a nice role. It was a good fit. The setting was nice. It wasn't like crazy downtown New York. It's kind of like, it was actually Queens, and it was like the small areas. There's a scene where he goes into a deli, and he really knows the owner, and they have a good conversation. It's like he's kind of just really involved in New York, and you can tell. But obviously, the movie's filmed in Atlanta with like 1 week worth of stuff in New York. Even the DC set was faked, but it looked really well. I mean, obviously, movie magic now, but it did a really nice job with that DC set. That was just the DC set. There wasn't even a villain. Like, you saw all the climbing and the DC stuff, so it's like it could have been cool for a villain fight, but obviously they didn't need it. It was kind of just a character builder thing, and it's the alien tech they had that Ned had still that they were looking at ended up being able to explode, and it blew up. And like the elevator they were in, to fall, that stuff. Really cool scene. All the scenes were great, like I said. Is there anything I disliked, really? Not really. I mean, there wasn't anything that really bothered me. I mean, the Shocker character really had no important value, which I thought he would have been a cooler character if you could have shown a little more of him. Aunt May is not in this movie too much, but that's fine. I mean, obviously you don't want her to be in the whole movie, but there's no like deep conversation with her or anything. There's a funny scene where she does. Aunt May now knows that Peter's Spider-Man. At the very end, she finds out, and it like cuts when she's about to drop the F-bomb. She's like, "What the?" And then it cuts out and goes to the credits. So now we'll know in Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Infinity War that she is fully aware of what happens. I guess that's important to tell too. All the people who know that Peter is Spider-Man now still consist of Iron Man. I'm assuming the other Avengers will know now. Happy, Hogan, his best friend Ned, and Aunt May. He never ended up telling Liz, obviously, because it kind of got... Yeah, that character. That was... Sorry. Now we're back on his love interest crap. So, he really liked Liz. You find out that she kind of liked him too. And then the whole prom thing happens, and their dad goes to jail. And so, obviously, she and her mom end up moving to Oregon, or they say they are. And he never tells her that he's Spider-Man, because obviously we're not sure how she'd feel about him being Spider-Man, as Spider-Man is the one who caught her dad. I'm sure she didn't like approve of what her dad did, but it's still your dad, you know. And so she just left. She's leaving, as far as we know. And so I think they're gonna switch it over to Zendaya's character is gonna be the interest, probably, because like you can tell it's not like crazy obvious, and she doesn't make it that way because her character's kind of just a weird character who pretends not to care about anything. But you can tell there's kind of something that she likes him a little bit, and I'm sure if they do that, they'll flesh it out more, because obviously she's a semi-big name, at least a bigger name than the actress who played Liz. Both of them did a great job. Anyways, everyone, like I said, no one did a bad job. But it looks like they're going to be heading more in her direction, or just introducing someone new, or not even bothering with an interest, because it's in every superhero movie, really. I don't know how he's going to get set up for an Infinity War. I don't know if it's going to be like a high school class, and they're just going to call him up and say, you need to leave and come with us. That'll be an interesting thing to see, because obviously he declined joining the Avengers. Although, obviously, him joining it would have been the easiest way to get him into Infinity War. He did decline, and so he'll be in it. Next year, there is one plot hole-ish thing with this movie, which was that after it showed him cleaning up the Avengers' first movie's effects, the war thing, it's Rubble, which in that movie came out in 2012, but then it said 8 years later and transitioned to that movie. But that would mean that this movie takes place in 2020, or that movie actually took place in 2009, which wouldn't make sense because that set back all the other movies. So that was just a screw up on their part. I really don't know what the thinking was behind that. That's kind of just, you're screwing with the timeline and confusing people, which you really didn't need to. Just get dates right, man. I don't know if like that's wrong, or like it's meant to be in 2020, but then that has to mean that unless Infinity War like secretly takes place even further back, because obviously it has to take place after this. Yeah, but I mean, that Civil War didn't seem too far off from this movie, so apparently, yeah, just don't. I just ignored that. Don't even think too hard into that 8 years later thing. It might have been an error, or if it was their timeline, it's stupid. Just know that the movie order's all the same. You watch them in order of release, except for Guardians 2, you watch right after Guardians, and Thor Ragnarok is, I believe it's gonna be the same time as Civil War because that explains where they were. Don't quote me on that though, obviously. But back to Spider-Man, I guess. So yeah, it looks like Zendaya's character is going to end up being the Avengers. They said they give the reference of MJ, saying that her name's MJ. So like, people were thinking, is this going to be this movie's version of Mary Jane? It's not actually Mary Jane. Her name's Michelle Jones, I think. So I guess hypothetically it could be like just that type of character, the one like a new Avengers, but it's not like actually Mary Jane. And so I know some people were kind of frustrated with that it would be, but it's not, obviously. That's not her name. What else is it? Flash Thompson's in this movie. He's not the stereotypical, like, looks like he's 30 bully you'd see in the other ones. He's still a bully, but in like a more modern way, where he's just kind of a jerk with words. He's not really beating him up. He's just talking crap all the time. And so his character doesn't provide much. I mean, he's just there because he's like there in the comics. I mean, there's some humor involved, but that's pretty much it with his character. Nothing really there. You like hate him a little bit, but it's not like you're not like crazy hateful of him. But there's a scene where he steals his dad's car and Spider-Man doesn't, totally wrecks it, and that's, you felt kind of justified with that. You're like, yeah, when you saw him screw it up. But that's pretty much all the spoiler stuff I wanted to talk about. Comment your favorite scene of the movie below, or what you thought of the movie. Anything that you think I missed that I should talk about, I'll talk about with you in the comments section, because obviously I can't think of covering everything you guys want to cover, because obviously there's more scenes involved that maybe you guys want to know my opinion of. Probably not, but just real quick, I am posting constantly now on my Twitter, which is at PressSwinehart, PrestSwinehart, all lowercase. I tweet out the link to my video as soon as I upload, and some other random stuff throughout the days. So yeah, make sure to follow that. My channel's slowly dying right now, so I'm trying to get it back up. So if you're not interested in, like, if you just want some actual like PlayStation gaming videos soon, don't worry, they're coming back. There will be at least one this week. Just needed to get the Spider-Man ones done because they're awesome and they're my favorite thing to do. So sorry, I got a message on my screen, so I had to move my hand. All right, so that was the Spider-Man spoiler talk. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Like I said, if I miss anything, I will address it in the comments, or maybe even in the description if I could really think of something like, Dane, why didn't I talk about that? I will. All right, guys, yeah, that's it. This is K-May Preston, signing out. See you later.